light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Ozone chose thousands of years ago to install a permanent exhibit. It's a little rough. 50,000 years ago, thousands of pieces of rock are now nestled next to craters in the desert where the Navy designs and tests grenade launchers and cruise missiles. Sun-scorched and fearless galleries, their thin white lines remind me of a local piano rock band incorporated the day that broke up after 5-star years of basement shows and van sleeping. Some performing artists I know, a troupe named something about a hippo, an elephant, a train wreck still tore, living in a tent and feeding on their busted saws and the busted washing machine they got for free if they hauled it. A particular chapbook, the product of a bowler-hatted Hungarian man with a mermaid tattoo who read at the public library on a rainy Tuesday last October. Hurdles through my mind, thin and maroon, a painted arrow towards its target, a clay brown deer hair, a metaphor for truth, capital T. The man went by 2 initials like Elliot, who's gone down as the man who strung the world together on paper and plagiarism, the very best plumber, heavy equipment operator, salvage crew, Mr. Fix-It we had at the time, but still, we only got fragments on ruins, a laconic visual of the stereotypical view of modern art that still elicits views and sorts of stupid bunk. Chris, shut up! It's been 12 years. Doesn't work, man. Give it up. For much of the same species that all of it was designed to reach in the first place. Yet, when it hits, when the startling clarity of a white goat scratched on the shady side of a rock formation in the Mojave, 6 to 21st century suburban kid in tight jeans and SPF 48, and tickets in a time and space in the endeavors of man, how God has gifted such an undeserving species, then it all comes back to Havel, and the fact that sitting around speculating if an action will have an effect is the only way it surely won't. It all comes back to Václav Havel, and the fact that sitting around speculating if an action will have an effect is the only way it surely won't. Comes back to clenched fists and prayer and working the pavement, back to the Molotovs and big pens on the subway cars, to the minimum wage that's funding the next revolution, back to not selling nothing till after you're dead, back to barbaric yachts, both virtuoso and in drop D, back to trusting God and swinging away through hell and high water and whatever comes next, back to soul, back to the tag of freedom, redoing Goya's the 3rd of May, sans press release, sans artist Q&A, an afternoon lunch and social, back to the ruler, perfect shafts of light in that abandoned Amtrak tunnel illuminating the deafening decibels of his pain, back to the persistence of cement songs, which is the persistence of stone songs, ink songs, lyric songs, the persistence of rising, of spreading, of small sparks like us that do not know their own size or what the world has to say about their particular potentials, of sparks ignorant of statistics and theories, of sparks without hands to ring or scales to weigh the pros and cons of failing, of sparks that simply burn and burn and burn with all they have because they, you, we have all been created for that alone. This song's called Doing This. It's about my parents. Sorry about the lamp. I tried to buy a new one. They don't make them anymore. Or Walmart was out of stock. Sorry about Walmart. The needle punctuated the air, a relentless gavel handing down sentences, the craft store bought fate, punching white nylon futures through the presser foot and into dead canvas, my mother scrapped from old projects gone wrong. This was her first attempt at the sewing machine since the doctors finally cauterized the last retinal bleed, and she'd begun to learn Braille, walk with a cane, find passing cars by ear. She insisted 20/12/40 vision didn't mean she couldn't sew, so my father resigned himself to hovering, wavering on his heels in attempted help. I can do this, Alan. Met my father's hands in every word he spoke, her back hunched like the edge of a waterfall. I watched my father work his frustration like a glass blower, the liquid fire sinking down into the mold of his stomach to set in his eyes, ghastly potentialities, severed digits, pulpy flesh, shaped themselves silently, but my mother only leaned more over the machine. I don't remember why she lifted the presser foot, the blood when the needle passed through her finger, or whether we went to the hospital, but I can see my father that night cradling her thumb in an ice pack on the sofa, my mother's tears carrying all her fears of losing her life as a nurse, failing as a mother and a wife, down into the soft plaid of his shirt, the one that always smells of pine. He whispered over and over again, "You don't have to see." Thanks. This poem's called Dirt, and then there's a poem called One. It's Richie's mom. Don't ever forget that Jesus 50-50'd his way to earth down an unwed teenage girl's vagina. He manualed out into the backwoods of the Roman Empire, Tony Hawk's a theme. He did it on purpose. For a time, he had to have his butt wiped. He had an umbilical cord and someone cut it. Mary might have pooped during the whole thing. Many women do. Don't wipe away the blood and amniotic fluid when you remember him. Burn your Lysol wipes as incense. Anachronistic hygiene is a sin. God incarnated himself to work a day job with his dad without AC and sandals. He came at a bad time. Pre-MySpace, flyers at the mall, DIY touring, and word of mouth, the only ways to spread the good news. He did it on purpose, took his time, slow rolling down Woodward, letting the lights chorus, not missing a photon of it all to be saved. Jesus said we must eat his flesh and drink his blood. He said it before the Last Supper, so there was no grounding for the metaphor, just crazy. Eat the scroll. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Many of America's founding fathers were deists, which means they rejected Jesus as the Messiah. The Bible calls such people antichrist. These antichrists helped found America. I have been ashamed. I have been ashamed of Jesus before men. The Bible says Jesus will be ashamed of such people before God. God genocided the Amalekites. The United States deposed Jacob Arbenz, a democratically elected leader, for its own gain. I have masturbated more times than I've had sex with my wife. Jesus asked God not to die, and God said no. So he died. Drink it raw. If the truth sets us free, then every single piece of truth must be a notch in the key. Don't sand it down. We need it all. God's strength is made complete in our weakness. Jesus called a woman a dog and then healed her daughter. Jesus befriended his betrayer, knowing what he'd do. Jesus made a way for pedophiles to go to heaven. Heaven is not a meritocracy. He chooses whom he chooses. If I'm honest, I fucking hate the team sometimes. Don't look away. Knowing Nagasaki and the blasphemies of my inner thoughts and the Denver Spider-Man and the Khmer Rouge fraternity hazing in the Congo Free State, God killed his son himself to buy back all the dirt he put his breath in. He did it on purpose. The pen didn't slip. He didn't stutter. Let him shape you. Sometimes love is unrequited and looks like wrestling and blood sweating and scars and a hole in the side that you keep. Sometimes holiness looks like a limp. Existence cascades before me in endless branches of flickering TV screens, a wall of static snow, free will, and the Spanish and Portuguese conquest of Latin America, my mother's fear and child pornography, the dads who leave and the dads who don't, but who can't straighten their crippled spirits back out once they've been mangled by failure and circumstance. My friends who are still, with all they have, trying to straighten their own backs out from the passed down pressure. EDM and Mint Green and Belle Isle at Sunset and Cava and the small of my wife's back, where my love for her pools, the day I got carjacked at the McDonald's on Mac and 75, the fact that all of my roommates came to pick me up, the kindness of Andrew's coat on my shoulders because the guy took mine, flower picking outside Traverse in June, crying at the counter of that coffee shop, and right now in the Phoenix airport as I reflected on all I have been given All of Walt Whitman's lists and his slouch, Go Home by Julian Baker, the Holocaust, and all of the pain, and all of the love that I cannot reconcile. It all cascades endlessly and beyond my reach and impenetrable and too large for me, and yet Jesus parts it all, every atom, with one hand, and he walks right up to me and he looks me in the eye, and it's love, and he doesn't blink. I didn't even work. Offer pretty convincing arguments sometimes, like Glenn Beck and his chalkboard. The last 100 years in Chechnya are a decent reason for atheism. Seriously. Sarin gas's existence and the thought that somebody made it on purpose are two more. It's not hard to become Bishop's armadillo, raising his weak male fist to the sky, stoked on the wave instead of the ocean. Christ core community, all of my friends and me got slammed on the beach like false idols in a purge, broken open like oysters. We spit out our pearls like loose teeth, returning the bits of stained glass we'd enshrine with our idolatrous gold and wood. I don't know if God did it or shaped it, if it was our mid-20s arriving or the efficacy of deconstruction or just some will-o'-the-wisp screw tape found on Craigslist. Who can say? We are all, each and every one of us, flat little rectangles interacting with an infinitely dimensioned entity and an incomprehensible reality. And sometimes, man, it's just hard to tell. We hold our pieces of colored glass with bloody fingers. Love fits in a hand, eternity in your lungs, yet God is love and eternity endless. The duality confounds the nearness and presence and comingness of the kingdom all at once here and coming and inside us. Understanding is a tightrope strung up between two towers in the fog. Arminius and Calvin each holding an end with Piper and Dives, and Jesus dancing and strolling in a sleep in the middle, like on the boat in that storm. Steve McAlpine says all of God's characteristics mutually inform one another. There is no Venn diagram, just lots of whole pies, the Chicago deep dishness of God, the pepperoni and mozzarella, always mutually informing one another. So maybe it's two circles joined, me and you, rolling over and on top of one another in our bed, turning on an axis the way I found the universe's center on a curve outside of Domino's when I was 17, life and death in 16th century literature, and Gaddafi, the Planeteers, and Eli Whitney all flying around while I ate pizza with Richie in the stillness of a sunset. There is nowhere to go, everywhere to be. It is all a kaleidoscope turning, God, a gem illuminated from within us, constantly spinning, revealing new shapes and colors, but always one and always deeper. Eternity is a place, a point in time, and also the endlessness we are always descending into. Savor it. Let your roots down. Let yourself grow. The whole world is holy. Every atom shaking. All of matter working out its faith and fear and trembling. I feel like I should take off my shoes. Feel the telegraph tapping of it all on my bare feet. The heliocentric solar system is a sacrament. I say it like the Lord's Prayer. Each planet passing through my fingers. Each one going around and around the sun. Going over and over a coat of paint. The way Yusuf's poems are him talking around and around a subject, walking around the pond, saying so much more about it. The way electrons orbit their nuclei, the way I imagine Mary going over and over the words she'd been given, treasuring it in her heart. Walt Whitman published Leaves of Grass over and over again, expanding and revising and basking in the light of it all. Barry Lopez put his arm around my shoulder and brought me to his microscope and showed me every brushstroke of America. Every state, city, town, hamlet, neighborhood, house is a world all unto itself. Ant-Man fell to the bottom, shrinking smaller and smaller, finding new level of existence after new level of existence until he finally found love in the stillness At the bottom of it all, I am buried by my smallness, beating my chest at the back of the sanctuary, consumed by all of the sweat and weight and dirt. God lifts me like Peter from the water, like a flower to the light, and reminds me of Vienna that day in March. I can see it like a feeling, like I'm there again. I love the flowers and the doors. Die sind so schön. Ich habe keine Freundin gehabt, als ich ihnen gesehen habe. Aber jetzt habe ich eine Frau und ich will ihr sie geben. Die ganze Stadt wrapped up in a bouquet. Ich liebe dich, I love you. The words of God, the axis run through like a nail. When it all turns upon, everything spins on a potter's wheel. Electrons around their nuclei. The record on its turntable. The earth on its axis. Pizza dough on an index finger. The moon around the earth. The gooseneck kettle pouring its concentric circles on the coffee grounds. The planets around the sun. Paul said he only knew Christ and Christ crucified when he was among the Corinthians. It's two things, but really just one, and everything else, eating and talking and laughing and theology and tent making, must have come from that seed. We are caught in the slow motion, the present and the future and the past, the record spinning, the song playing, the abiding, the stillness, the waiting, all of the colors of light, each of us in every moment and everything holding up its piece of the glass, and God spinning them all together. It crushes me, breaks me open, just like Norell said, like the alabaster jar, and all of my fear and anger and love and yearning and thrashing and hope and worry and longing all pour out, and it's myself and my spirit and all I have, where I am in the process, and it's bare before God, a drink offering, and the light washes in, and I am reminded and know again and again and again without fail that I am loved, that my friends can love each other again, that my mom will see again, that she already does and will again, and man, I cannot keep it all together. The questions and the apologetics and the hurt and Rwanda and the good intentions and the hypocrisy and the love and Andre's affair and the fear and the abuse and the hopes, everyone blundering forward in some kind of upward tornado of grace, but somehow he has gravity and a hand and a silence and an easy yoke and a relief and a voice and a song before I can even try to pull all the ravaged ends back together again. He is there like Spider-Man on that ferry, but better, and the web holds flawlessly, and the water begins to feel like solid ground again, and there is nothing and everything, and I am encompassed, consumed, and one. Yes and amen and hallelujah, the deafening and silence and honest and final and grateful murmur of my prostrate spirit, and then I, the uncertain, thankful, confused, certain, speechless, humbled, rejoicing, scaleless pot, finally say to the potter, keep going. South Florida. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Jesus!
There's the infinite supernova. I want to be a light so bright that they can see for hundreds of thousands of millions of billions and trillions of miles so far. They have to use those big scientific words that I don't know so well. Jesus, make me your light so they can see what you've done and still do for me. Jesus, make me your light so they can see how you saved me, how you changed me, how you saved me from hell in this life and eternity as well. Jesus, make me your light so they can see when I was deep down in pits of sin, so deep and dark, man, I couldn't tell myself from the sin. You didn't just stand up there on high like, hey, man, looks rough. Check out our podcast. I love you. No. Jesus, make me your light so they can see how you came right down in there, wrapped your arms around me, got nasty with it, pulled me right on out of there, made me whole and complete in you. Jesus, I will be whatever size light you need me to be. I'll be the supernova, a lighthouse, or a big old searchlight, or I promise, man, if you need something smaller, I will just be a tap light and gladly, or a pen light and gladly, or one of those cool little race car keychain flashlights like my parents got me for Christmas, and gladly. Just please, Jesus, make me your light. Just please, Jesus, make us your light. Just please, Jesus, make us your light. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.